All right, first, I want to thank everyone for coming down. This is the first Facility Security Committee sponsored event that we've had in this building. So we're hoping that y'all will pass the word once you've gone through these sessions this morning and get some more people down here this afternoon. Don't forget about the exhibitors that are out here. They've come to share their knowledge, and they have a few giveaways. So this morning, the first session is going to be about individual and community emergency preparedness. We have with us Candice Covin from the American Red Cross. I'm going to let her introduce herself. We are recording this, so if you have questions at the end, please raise your hand. We're going to get you a mic so that it can be on the recording and everyone else can hear. Okay? Candice?
So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, I would tell you, I do not sing, I do not dance, okay? So I'm not here to entertain, but it will be fun, okay? And I'm very interactive, so if I call on you, don't take it personally. I'm just making sure you're paying attention, okay? So I'm a disaster program specialist with the American Red Cross. So what do? I go around into the community. I talk to children, I talk to adults, I talk to senior citizens about being ready for an emergency or disaster. So we do community preparedness education presentations, as well as presentations for children. How many of you heard of our Pillowcase Project, the Pillowcase Project? So the Pillowcase Project is a disaster preparedness or an emergency preparedness presentation that we do for children. We started doing this presentation on the 1st of April of this year. The Pillowcase Project is named that because of during Hurricane Katrina. The college students who were asked to evacuate, they couldn't get to their luggage. So when they went to their dorm rooms to grab their emergency items, they were throwing them in their pillowcases. So when they got to the Red Cross shelter, of course we said, what's with the pillowcases, right? So they told us that they didn't have enough time and they just started throwing their personal items in the pillowcase. So we said, okay, great, that's a good idea. We're going to start talking to children about the Pillowcase Project, having emergency items. So Disney caught wind of what we were doing, and Disney said, you know what? We're going to pay for everything. We're going to pay for pillowcases, project books, everything. All we want you to do is reach as many children as possible. So since we've done that, in the National Capital Region, we've reached over 1,500 children. And we kind of slowed down during the summertime because we're most effective in the schools. But if you're interested in the same presentation that I'm going to give to you today, if you're interested in the one that's for children, let me know and I can tell you how you can schedule a presentation. It's free. It's about 45 minutes. We go to Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, church groups. We go anywhere where there's kids because we want to reach as many as possible. The second thing that I do is I deploy. I deploy to different regions in the United States that have disasters. For example, I just got back from Kentucky. Anybody know what's been going on in Kentucky? They've been having a lot of flooding there. Prior to Kentucky, I was doing Texas. Anybody heard about what's happening in Texas? All the flooding, right, thousands of people. Before that, I was in Oklahoma. You heard about what's going on in Oklahoma? They had tornadoes and flooding. And the reason why I ask, have you heard about it? Because it'll make the news very quickly. It'll be the news for a day, but as you know, the world we live in, everything else overrides everything that's really happening, right? That's affecting us. So there's a lot of things that go on in the states, nationally, with disasters. And that's what I do. I help to respond to those. When the people overwhelm the resources in those communities, that's where emergency aid comes from. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about being prepared. So many times we go to different areas and there's no one who ever told us, you know what, I was so ready, I have my kit, I'm good to go, I don't need anything. Thank you so much for the offer. Never heard anyone say that. Most of the time people say, I wasn't prepared, I didn't know. So what is the mission of the American Red Cross? The American Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. All that to say, can someone tell me, what do you think the percentage of volunteers to Red Cross employees? What's the percentage, 50-50? 75-20, volunteers to Red Cross employees. Volunteers versus employees. I heard 75% volunteers or employees. Volunteers and 25% employees. Anyone else? Close, very close. In the National Capital Region, 98% are volunteers. 98. Can you imagine Almost everyone that you will see at a blood drive, with the exception of people drawing blood, they are definitely paid workers, okay? But anywhere else you go, you can guarantee that it's probably a volunteer, okay? So that just speaks to what we do and how big the Red Cross is. So our main thing is human suffering, alleviating that, whatever that may be, whatever the immediate needs are. So why prepare? So according to, and I won't overwhelm you with statistics, okay? I got a few of these, but not many. 38% of American households keep an emergency kit at home. 38%. That's not a lot, right? How many of you in here have an emergency kit? Wonderful. So those of you who raise your hand, where's your emergency kit at? In the dining room? Bedroom in the basement? Okay, wonderful. So we're going to come back to that in just a second. 92% of Americans surveyed have lived through a disaster. 92%. How many in here have lived through a disaster? Wonderful, wonderful. Guess what? Those people that we surveyed, 90% of that 92 have not practiced. They didn't practice after they've been through a disaster, okay? And 30%, which I think is a little bit higher, they say they'll take their chances. Because a lot of people say, I just take my chance and see what happens, right? So in the National Capital Region, our response, how many of you know that we respond to every fire here in the National Capital Region? When I say the National Capital Region, I'm talking about D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Do you know we're there at every single fire, every single incident? Most people don't know that. And we don't make the news because we're always there. We're not the news anymore. So right after that fire department or that emergency response team or dispatch, we're right behind them. We usually arrive when there's a fire, when the firemen are still there putting it out. We're there to provide assistance. Are we a government agency? Absolutely not. We are a nonprofit organization. So more than 480 firestorm incidents. And remember, this 2014 report was done back in October. So these numbers definitely go up around the holidays. Unfortunately, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those are the busy days, unfortunately. And we assisted nearly 2,800 individuals during that time. So are you prepared? What events have you all experienced here in the National Capital Region? Now, I'm from Florida. You all know what I've experienced, right? Hurricanes. We went to school in hurricane weather. Walked, okay? So what have you experienced here in this area? Derechos, earthquake. Yes, I was here for that earthquake. Didn't expect that one. Anyone else? Terrorist attacks. Snow. Snowmageddon. That was my welcome to D.C. So you got a lot of things going on. And what I see every day on the news, I see a lot of flooding here. I always see flooding. At least expect that. But flooding everywhere, streets, whatever. There's always flooding. Excuse me. So the question is, when you've gone through these natural disasters, were you prepared? Is anyone not prepared? Is anyone going to ask a question? So more than likely, most people will say, I was kind of prepared because my kid was at home, so technically, but they were at work, so it didn't really count. And those people who were on the Beltway during Snowmageddon, right? The ones sitting in those cars, how many of them do you think were prepared? I can tell you how many weren't because all those cars left on the Beltway, right? Exactly. So I want to talk to you about get a kit. And the first thing I always ask is, do you have a kit and where is it? Now the reason why I ask where is it, because in a fire, say you had a fire in your home, how many minutes do you have average to get out your home? 2 minutes. 2 minutes average, and it drops every year. Why is that? It spreads, and because of the stuff we have acquired so much stuff. We have laminate floors, we have all these decorations in our homes, we have so much stuff. That stuff creates toxic fumes, right? So when we say 2 minutes, it's not 2 minutes, an average of 2 minutes to get away from the fire, it's the smoke. The smoke is what will get people, okay? So that smoke. So let's say you have an emergency kit, right? You got 2 minutes. This 2 minutes includes going to get your family members, your pets. How many of you think you're going to go run down to the basement and find your emergency kit? How many of you are going to go look in that closet in the back of the closet for your emergency kit. It's not going to be a priority. And I'm saying this because a lot of people, they have it, but where is it? That's the question, right? So if you have that kit, we want you to have your kit to the nearest exit point, okay, where you think you're going to get out of, whether it be a window, whether it be the front door. A lot of people say, well, I really don't want this big emergency kit sitting by the front door. You know what? This is mine, okay? You can have it in whatever you want, right? I grab this when I go out. This is one of the many kits that I have. I actually have too many, I think. I think it's overkill. But a little background on that, I do deploy a lot, so I like to be ready. I was also in the military for 12 years, and my husband retired from the military. So we're ready, okay? My husband's kit is probably twice as big as this. I'm saying this because we say we want your kit to be in a type of portable container. That container can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a backpack. It can be a rolling suitcase. I've seen some people in the plastic tote containers. Whatever you want it to be in, that's fine. But remember, you have to carry this, okay? So if you know you can't carry it, I'm sure during an emergency you're not going to be able to look down the street and ask a neighbor, hey, can you come and get this for me? Really? So you want to make sure it's something that you can carry. So I have a kit called my Go Bag that I use on a day-to-day basis, similar to this one. I have this one that has everything in it, and it's not so much as an eyesore when I sit it by the front door, and the kids, everyone knows what it is. I tell even children need to have an emergency kit. Now, when I see children, during an emergency, I want to have a little bag for my child where they can have some cards, a coloring book, some snacks, something that they can just throw in the back that is theirs, that they know this is an emergency. One of the nice things that I've seen in Fairfax when I was doing some presentations for the kids, in the schools there, every classroom has a go bag on the back of the classroom door. A go bag on the back of every classroom door. It has emergency first aid items. It has everything in there. And most of the time in classes, what we see teachers with clipboards with the name of all the students, okay? And that's about it, right? But they have emergency kits on the door, and I was so impressed by that because we need to be doing that even in our homes. There are 6 basic categories that we want to talk about for kits. Food. Now, I will show you this. Y'all hear that? This is emergency rations. Eat 1 bar every 6 hours per person, eat in small pieces. The reason why I'm showing you this, because when we say go get a kit, a lot of people like to go these kits that are pre-packaged, they just want everything included. I don't even know what this tastes like. I just know it's really hard, has a good shelf life, and it has some vitamin A, vitamin C. It all sounds good, but during an emergency is not the time to figure out whether I like this or not, right? And I know from eating rations in the military, some of this stuff is supposed to help you stay regular. You know what I mean? So depending on where I'm at, I may not want to have this, So I'm going to pass this around so you can just touch it, feel it for yourself. And the reason why I'm saying this again, I'm sorry? No, thank you. So the reason why I'm saying that, this is some of the items I like to have in my go bag. I have little tuna. These are water packed. I mean, you could just throw them in a bag. They're high protein. Little things of peanut butter, raisins, granola bars, nuts, oatmeal. All I need is some water, right? So what I'm saying is you don't have to go all high tech with it and buy these rations that you know you're not even going to eat. Get something that you know that you will enjoy, that your children will enjoy, not all the candy and the gum and all that stuff. This, you can also buy this one. This is drinking water. Have you all seen these before? Okay, so I drink about a gallon of water a day. This is not going to do anything for me, okay? But these are emergency rations. Where could you possibly put this? Maybe in your car, maybe in your office emergency kit. So some of these things are good, but again, get what you know that you are going to enjoy, and get something that you know that your family will enjoy. Water. How many of you drink at least a gallon of water a day? Yay, that's good. That's impressive because a lot of people don't drink that much water in a day. You'd be lucky if some people drink about 16 ounces of water, about 2 cups. So during an emergency, 3 days, you should have enough water for every person in the household for 3 days, and that means 1 gallon of water per day. Those of you who have emergency kits, how many of you have enough water for 3 days for everyone in your family? Wonderful. Do you know the expiration date of the water that you have? Yes. Does water expire? Absolutely. A lot of people don't think that water expires, but it's not the water, it's the container that it's in that will expire. So people say, well, I bought this water for my emergency kit. Now it's expired. What do I do? Hold on to it. Because in case of a storm or you don't have access to water to clean, to wash clothes, you can still use that water. But you definitely got to check the dates of the water. You got to check the dates of your food. Make sure you're rotating it out because food expires, right? The second thing is first aid. With first aid, it is so important to know what you have, right? I teach CPR, and I tell people that you are covered as long as you stay within your lane, within your level of training, right? What I'm saying is if you decide to go out after this class to go and get a first aid kit, don't get the one with the sutures in there and the scalpel and all that stuff. You know, get what's in your level of training, okay? Because during an emergency, that is not the time to try some new skills or to try some new first aid kit, okay? So get what you can use, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and buy it all. You probably have it in your home already. You already probably have these things in your bathroom. We want you to have a first aid kit. We want you to be familiar with everything in it. To include, you know how they have all of that iodine, alcohol, all that stuff? And my husband, his first aid kit consists of a bottle of alcohol. That's to cure off everything. You got a scratch, you got some alcohol. I got a burn, I got some alcohol. You cannot use alcohol and ointments and hydrogen peroxide. You should not be using that because you don't know whether your family member will have an allergic reaction to it. And based upon what you'll probably be going through during a disaster, it may not be wise to be using certain things that you're not familiar with. So make sure everything that's in your first aid kit that you can use it. You know how to use it. You know what's in there. Let's talk about clothing and bedding. You see this little blanket here on the table? This is a blanket. When we go to disasters, the first thing that we give people when we open up a shelter is 2 of these blankets. That's it. For you gentlemen, the tall ones, you just get 2. I've been in shelters where I see their feet poking out, the arms. It's only 2 of these you get from a Red Cross shelter. I'm saying this because if your children, if you have a particular blanket or clothing that you like, make sure you have that in your emergency kit. For kids, there's nothing wrong with sleeping bags for the family. And people say, well, how am I supposed to carry all that? How many of you have seen those vacuum packed bags where you could put blankets and quilts in them and just suck the air out of them? Those are wonderful. I love them. Up here, when I have all these winter clothes, I put everything in winter clothes inside the bag, and I seal it up. That's the way I keep them. You can do the same thing with an emergency kit. You can have those blankets. You can have pillows. You can have whatever's going to make you comfortable, okay? You don't get pillows in a shelter. Every time people come in, they say, can I have a pillow? You don't have those. So if you know that's what you need, make sure you have that in your kit. How many of you have a change of clothing in your emergency kit? Yay. So the biggest thing about clothing, you got to make sure you change them out based upon the seasons, okay? If it's winter, you want to have winter clothes. You want to have gloves, outer garments, hats, all that good stuff. Summertime, you want to make sure you take all those mittens and heavy coats out and put summer clothes in there, some flip-flops or whatever makes you happy, okay? Make sure you change that out. Now, we had one presentation where we asked everyone to bring in their emergency kits. And there were some people, they had clothes in them, but they were all mismatched. And I was like, really? And they're like, well, I'm not going to put my good clothes in there. Trust me, you. In the event of emergency or disaster, and that's all you have, you're going to want some good clothes in your emergency kit. You don't want to walk around with mismatched clothes. So make sure you pay attention to what you're putting in the kit, and make sure you have clothing for your children as well, everyone in the household. Tools and emergency supplies. This is a big one. Any other time, I would say duct tape is just so wrong, okay? In an event of emergency, this is your best friend. My husband is not mechanically inclined. I don't like him to fix anything, especially when he comes with the duct tape. But during a disaster and emergency, I encourage duct tape. You can use this for all sorts of things. Hundreds of things. Go Google it and see what you can do with this. And even with the kids, you know, they have different colors, everything. But not only do I have duct tape in there, I keep painter's tape, I keep masking tape, I keep it all because I just know that for some reason I'm always needing something. And when you have nothing, all of this comes in really handy. This can fix a shoe during an emergency. It can fix a jacket. It can tape up the bottom of your pants legs and then a flooding. I mean, you can do a lot with this. So I would highly encourage this. The second thing is this little Gerber, whatever you want to call it. Have y'all seen these? This multi-tool thing. It has little screwdriver. It has a little knife. It has a little clamp. I don't even know what the name of this stuff is, and I carry this everywhere because even though I don't know what they are for, I need it just in case. Somebody else may know how to use some of this stuff. And ladies, it has a fingernail file on here. I mean, just emergency stuff, you know? So I would highly recommend having one of these. It folds up nice. Don't try and go through airport security with it, though. Found that out the hard way. But just put it in your suitcase. But you definitely want to have one of these. And it folds up nice. And it has a little pocket for it, so it's perfect, right? The other thing that I definitely want you to be aware of is the specialty items. This is huge. Can anyone tell me what that little red box is right there? Weather radio, right? Yes, right? And what's that square thing right there? This thing right here with the big star on it. Map. Well, you know what? Depending on the kind of age group I have, when I say what's that, I say, map? It's a map. Because we all use GPS so much, how many of you still have a map? You know, nobody has a map nowadays. What happens when your cellular goes down and you can't use that GPS? You know, when I moved up here, I'm sorry? We got another class for that one. But let me tell you, when I moved up here, you all have $2.95, $3.95, $4.95, $95. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I said, how do people get around? What is this all about? Why? Why do we need all these roads? I would come here, I would get lost, I would call my husband. I'm on the corner of such and such and such and such. And he says, great, I can tell you how to get home. I said, no, we're past that. Come and get me. So he would drive to where I was at, and I would follow him home, okay? It's awful. So with that said, we need maps. We got to know how to read a map. You got to know how to get home. I've seen several times where the roads, there's a detour on the road, and I work with CERT teams as well, community emergency response teams, and we may be directing traffic, and we'll say the road is closed due to flooding, and I'll have people argue with us. I don't know how to get home. Which way do I go? This is the way I always go home. And I'm like, I don't know either, because I'm not from here. But you've got to know how to get home. You should know an alternate route home. Your children should know how to get home. Do your children know how to get home? And just in case they're at school, something happens there on their bus, do they know how to get home? I hope they know, because a lot of children don't know. Or they know, I go up here to this light, and we always turn right here, and then we turn again right there. But they don't know a street. They don't know how many miles. They need to know, you need to know. You need to know an alternate route home. You need to know an alternate route to work, an alternate route to pick up your kids. So this is not just for you, it's for everyone, right? The other thing is this. This is my friend. I love this thing. How many of you said it was a weather radio? How many of you said that? That's exactly what it is, but there's a few more things going on. You hear this? No batteries, okay? It charges, it's self-charging. I wind this up for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I got about 30 minutes of playing time, okay? All the news comes on this. Very good reception. Anybody remember what this thing is? Yeah. You ask children, they're like, I don't know, what is that? They're so deprived nowadays, but it's an antenna, okay? And it works. The other thing that's on here is that I can actually have a flashlight. You all see that? It's a flashlight too. How cool is that? Then at the bottom, I can also plug in my cell phone, and I can charge my cell phone. What? So I had some person say, they said, well, if you have no power, if you have no cellular connection, why would you need to charge your cell phone? And I said, well, when it does come up, I'll be the first one with one working. So, so this is good. You can also put it's a headphone jack here as well. So this is good. You need to have one of these. I carry this in my purse, in my car. We have these. You can buy them for less than $20. I mean, this is a great thing to have anywhere, all right? The other thing is this one. This, too, is a light. You hear how you got to crank it? Now, this thing is aggravating the noise, but you know, if you're going through a storm, there's no lights, there's no TV for the kids, there's no video games for the kids, keep doing that. It's a flashlight. And if you keep doing it, the light will stay on. Now, it's good for probably about an hour or two. After that, you know, they'll figure out something else to do with it. But, you know what I'm saying, if you want something to go in their bag, something like this in their bag, that'll work too. So those are the specialty items I'm talking about. And also, too, playing cards. How many of you remember Uno? Right? What about Jenga? Hours of fun, right? That's what you need to have in your emergency kit. Have you ever sat home when the lights went off at home? Oh, my gosh. You know, you got the flashlights, but you don't want to run them too long because then you're going to lose battery, right? There's no TV. The kids, oh, my God, I have 2 teenagers, but they're just like 5-year-olds when the power goes out, right? So they want me to sing and dance, but they want to be entertained. Jenga, Uno, those are the types of things. They cost nothing. Throw them in your emergency kit so they'll have something to do, so you'll have something to do. The other thing, specialty items. Let's talk about medications. How many of you take medications? Everybody in here probably, right? All of us. So medications. How many of you have at least a 30 to 60-day supply on hand at all times? Most people don't. But I will tell you, if you have nothing but your prescriptions, you are ahead of the game, okay? If you can at least know your prescriptions. A lot of people, they can't have the 30, 60, 90-day, depending on what type of drug they have, especially if it's a narcotic or something. You're not going to get that much on hand. But you want to have at least a 30-day if you can, or you want to have your prescriptions. And the reason why I say this is because we've gone to many disasters where people will say, I lost my medication in the fire, in the storm, or what have you. And so we say, well, what is your prescription? I don't know, but it's a little small white pill, and it's got, okay? We can't help you with that, okay? Because most of the time, the doctors are not on scene, and we can usually get a prescription filled for you if you have a prescription, right? But we cannot just pick something out of a hat and say, okay, use this for your heart medication, you know? But we need to know the prescriptions. You need to know them. Now, with that said, let's talk about glasses. How many of you wear glasses? How many of you have a pair of spare glasses in your emergency kit? You got to have an emergency pair. People always say, well, you know, I get a prescription every year, but I don't have an extra set to just put in an emergency kit. You know, my husband wears glasses. I mean, he truly wears glasses. He wakes up in the morning like this, okay? He needs his glasses. So every year, 2 years, when he gets his prescription renewed or changed, not necessarily because there's something wrong with the pair he has, it's just that it's time, right? So I tell him to take the old pair and put them in his emergency kit. Now, you always have a pair, and they're a nice pair, right? So put them in your emergency kit so you'll always have a pair of glasses on hand, because you never know. If you break it, guess what? Right? You know, so we're prepared here. Second thing, hearing aids. Hearing aids, the same thing. You want to have an extra hearing aid. If you don't have one, ask your doctor, ask your provider for that, so you can have that in your emergency kit. Important papers. How many of you have all of your documents in a secure place just in case of an emergency? Should be everyone, right? Where do you have yours at, sir? Your office. Where's your office? Work, home? At home? Perfect. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. On your side table. Okay. Anyone else? Fire safe box, and someone else said in the closet, right? Well, let me share something with you. When I was in Oklahoma a couple months ago, and emergency, right? They had the tornadoes and they had the flooding. We went to some homes, some areas, and we were doing damage assessment, and all we saw was the foundation of the home. Where's the home? We don't know. Tornado took it somewhere, or it's down the river somewhere. Those people who had emergency documents at home, where do you think their emergency documents are at now? They're gone, right? Now let's just say perhaps you have it in a fire safe and you have a fire. You good to go? Not necessarily, because if you have a fire and you have a fire safe, yes, they'll find it Eventually, depending on where it's at, they may find it, and they may find it a little bit later than when you actually need it. We've gone to fires where beautiful homes, home is gone. We'll ask the homeowner, do you have insurance? Yes, I do. What's the name of your insurance company? I don't know. My paperwork was in the house is gone. I mean, basic information they don't have, right? So you got to have all those important documents somewhere where you can get to them. What would be an alternative to having them at home, in the office, or in a fire station? What are some other alternatives? Safe deposit box, maybe. What else? PDFs. Yay! That's what I love. Every single document that I have, from birth certificate, social security cards, mayor's license. My kids were all born all over the world. One in Germany with a German birth certificate. I can't even read his birth certificate. I guess he's mine. But, but I keep telling him, I said, you know, if you lose this, you're in trouble, buddy. You try and explain your dual citizenship here, you know? So I keep everything scanned. I scan everything, and I keep it in the cloud, you know, like Apple Cloud, iCloud. I keep it in the cloud because I can access it from anywhere. As long as I have an internet connection, I have it. Now, a lot of people say, well, most of the time they want to see originals. Trust me, when you have nothing, that is better than nothing, okay? When you lose everything, a PDF that you're pulling down off of your files, they'll take it. Just imagine, have you ever lost a wallet? Ever lost a wallet and tried to replace those things in there? My passport expired. I went to go get a new passport, and I was shocked. They told me that I had to submit all these different documents, and I was like, wait a minute, I sent you a copy of my military ID. I'm a veteran. I sent you all this stuff, and you still questioning my identity? I was like, what if I didn't even have this stuff? I would be in some serious trouble, right? So you got to make sure you are prepared and your family members are prepared. The other thing is cash. How many of you carry cash around? I never carry cash because I spend it quickly, and if it's in my purse, the kids think what's mine is theirs, and they just take it with no warning, right? So I never have cash on me. I'm always using debit credit card. What happens when the power goes out in the grocery stores? Ever been there? Standing in the line, and they say cash only, and you're looking like, really? Who has cash, you know? Especially when you're doing a full day of shopping or something. You don't have cash all day, right? But during a disaster or a storm, you need cash, and you need small bills and some change. Let's say it's an emergency. You go to a store because you're thirsty. You didn't have enough water at home, right? The water is only $5 a gallon, right? And you have a 20. What you gonna do? And of course, they have no change, right? What you gonna do? You gonna buy that gallon of water for 20? I bet you will if you really need it, right? So you want to have small bills just in case of an emergency. You want to have that change. Also, again, about the insurance. Remember I talked about the homeowner's insurance, making sure you know who your providers are, who your service providers are. You want to know all of those. Let's talk about pets. How many of you have a pet? Yay for pets. A lot of pets in here. How many of your pets have an emergency kit? You got to have one. I tell people this all the time. When we open up shelters, when people bring their pets to shelters, there are some people, if they go to a shelter and they say no to that pet, they won't even stay in the shelter. They rather stay in their car with their pet than to go into the shelter. And the reason why I'm saying that they need an emergency kit as well, first thing is those shots, your immunization shots for those pets, even if we have facilities for pets, if you can't prove that they had all of their shots, they're still not going in there either. So you got to make sure that you have their records as well. Where are you going to keep their records at? In the cloud. Yes, yes. So you want to make sure you have that. You want to have a photo of you and your pet. Because sometimes pets get lost during storms, right? And someone sees this cute little Bichon with the black beady eyes and white fluffy, and they find it, and all of a sudden they give it a name, and it's theirs, right? And you say, no, that's mine. They say, no, it's mine. And the dog answers both because both are trying to feed it and coax it, right? So if you have a picture of you and your pet, it sometimes helps with identification, okay? So having a picture is always good. Making sure you have a leash. Make sure you have a crate. Now people say again, in an emergency kit, really a crate? Crates come collapsible. You can buy the collapsible crates. If you have a crate, at least you have somewhere to secure your pet. Everyone doesn't love pets. If someone's doing a client intake on an emergency and you have this big dog, or even the small ones, I see people terrified of the small ones, okay? You want to make sure that you have somewhere to secure. You want to have a leash. And also, too, I know that if I am home, my little Cocker Spaniel will go with me. I know this. I know if my husband's there, to each his own. My husband, he's not taking the dog, unfortunately, so he's not as fond as my dog as I am. So I got to make sure that he's covered. Now, during an emergency, have you ever noticed where they say you can't take pets with you? There's an identification that you can stick in the window of your home, letting people know, letting the fire department know, policemen know that there is a pet in the home, okay? So you can look into that as well to make sure that your pet is covered. Now, in a shelter, right? And the shelters, there are rules everywhere. Counties are different, okay? So let's not get in an uproar about this. But how many of you know that the only animal that you can bring into a shelter is what? Service animal. I've had people bring in chickens. I was at one shelter and the mom said that it was a pet chicken for the little boy. A pet chicken. Now keep in mind, this was after a disaster and she just kept saying, it is a service animal. He can't live without his chicken. Ma'am, we can't bring the chicken. And because of where we were at and the conditions, I was like, somebody eat that chicken too. But I just kept trying to explain to her that it only service animals. And she was really on the fence about coming into the shelter with a child with that chicken. So you got to make sure that you have your pets taken care of, okay? Did you all see on the news a couple of days ago the man and woman who were in the restaurant with a snake that was wrapped around his neck and they're passing it back and forth in the restaurant? The employees went up to the people and they said, you can't have a snake in here. And the woman said, well, it's a service animal. And so the people, this is why it made the news, because the employees weren't sure. He was like, well, okay, if you say it's a service animal, they didn't know. They did not know, and that's why it was in the news. But snakes are not service animals. They're not identified. We're not going to put you in a shelter with them, all right? So the other thing is, get a kit. Everything that I've been talking about as far as getting a kit and preparing that kit, you can find this online at American Red Cross, Be Red Cross Ready, arcvrcr.org. And it has different steps to take. You can put in the number of people that are in your family, and it can tell you exactly what you need. How cool is that? Technology, right? So you can make your own kit. You can download lists for the kit. Out there on the table that I have, there's a lot of brochures out there. The most important one I would tell you to get out of all those out there is the Be Red Cross Ready, the one I just presented to you just now, but there's more. The other thing I want to show you this. Anybody know what this is? This is called a Blackout Buddy. This is really cool because what you do is you take this and you plug this into your outlets throughout your home, right? When the lights go out, it's like a night light. But just in case the power goes out in your home, you just grab one of these off the wall and it's a flashlight. And you have 8 hours on it. That is really cool. We encourage a lot of our senior citizens to get these. And this was like $10 for this one, but this one was not a bargain. You can get them cheaper than this, Amazon.com or redcross.org, okay? But you can definitely buy these, but these are really cool. They're called Blackout Buddies. You just plug them into your wall and they're emergency flashlights, okay? So that's a good one to have. Make a plan. Remember what we talked about having a plan? What can happen, where to go, and who to contact? I have my cell phone. I love my cell phone. It's an extension of my arm. I always have it, right? Out of the 200 and something contacts in my cell phone, there's 2 numbers I know. My husband's and my home number, with the exception of mine, the third one. That's it. I don't know anyone else's number, okay? I don't memorize numbers. I have a cell phone for that. But just in case that cell phone goes out, does anyone still have an address book? Remember those things? Several pages in it, alphabetical order, you put down everybody's numbers. You need to have an address book. Everyone needs to have an address book. Your kids need to have an address book. Because you know when they get their little cell phones and we put our numbers in their cell phones, mommy, daddy, what happens when the cell phones are down? Who do they call? Who do they know to call? Whose numbers do they have? Do they have anybody's number? So you got to have that little thing. Emergency contact card. A plan. You got to have a plan. Remember I talked about, you know, the kids need to know how to get home. You need to know how to get home. In your home, how many of you have an escape plan in your home? You know, everybody usually says, well, as Thomas says, we're going to go out the front door if we can or the back door. I tell you what, in the case of a fire, remember that 2 minutes? The first thing we want to do is look for who? Look for family members, look for children, look for dogs, pets, right? Unfortunately, many casualties occur because people go back looking for each other, right? And they're probably already outside. We had one fire back in December. The home was on fire. The lady said she was in the basement doing laundry with her daughter. the fire broke out. Because it was cold, she was running around there getting jackets and stuff and telling them, we got to get out, we got to get out. Then all of a sudden, she thought about her son. Where's my son? So she's looking in the house for him. She's paranoid. Smoke's coming out. Now the neighbors are coming because the windows are breaking out. And she kept saying, my son. She wouldn't leave the house. She told the daughter to get outside. Long story short, when she went outside finally and she about collapsed, and that's when we were showing up, and we said, well, what's wrong with her? And they said, nothing. She's fine. Well, what happened? She said she was scared about her son. I said, well, what happened to the son? Nothing. When the fire broke out, he grabbed her cell phone and ran out into the middle of the street. He didn't have nothing on but a pair of shorts. No, it was cold. It was winter time. It was cold. Because in school, he learned that if there's a fire, get out, stay out. So he got out, and he stayed out, and the mom was in the house looking for him. So long story short, this is to say you need a plan. The son knew what the plan was. Mom didn't know what the plan was, right? So everybody in the house needs to know what the plan is. You need to make a plan, and everyone needs to be aware of it. I know my plan with my family. Everyone has to get out. I tell my kids, if there's a fire, if there's an emergency, whatever it is, if you have to get out of this house, you go 3 houses down to Miss Tammy's house. That's one of our neighbors. They already know to go there. Miss Tammy also has a key that she keeps secure around her property on the outside, where the kids know where the key is at, just in case there's an emergency. But we know that's our meeting place. I tell my kids, you're never going to come back and look for mom and dad. Don't worry about us. You just get out and you stay out, and we'll find you. So make a plan with your family, especially if you have children. I can tell you a whole list of plans for hurricanes, tornadoes. I can tell you all of these. But what you do today, when you grab those flyers that are out there, if you decide to take a few, if you decide to go home and Google us online, whatever the case may be, it's up to you to decide what your plan will be for you and your family. You also want to know about shelters and kennels. Remember that pet notification sticker that I was talking about? Here's an example of it right here. In case of emergency, animals inside. You want to put that up there. Safe and well. How many of you have heard of Safe and Well? Safe and well, let's say my family's down there in Florida. Hurricanes all the time, right? If there's a hurricane coming and it's a big one, I want to know that they're going to be okay. But I know that sometimes you can lose connection, power. Anybody remember doing inauguration? If you were in D.C., you can get a call out to save your life, right? So during hurricanes and that type of disastrous weather, you probably will lose connection. So what I always tell my family, whenever we see a storm coming there or here, I say, is everyone up on Safe and Well? They already know what it is. Everyone's registered, everyone's good. Okay, if you can't contact me, you know you can contact me through Safe and Well. And what Safe and Well is that you can go out there and you can send messages to your family. You can say, I'm okay, or I'm here, or I'm there. The children, they can send messages to us. They don't have a cell phone for whatever reason, and they get access to a computer. At least they can communicate to us where they're at, what's going on, all right? Can't get a phone call out, anything, but you can definitely use Safe and Well. Highly encourage that for everyone. And it can't be one doing it and the other one not doing it. You can't say, well, I'm going to go get registered, but nobody else knows you registered, right? So you can't send messages to each other. So you have to have that link on both ends. Make a plan. Again, you want to know who you can contact, whether in-state or out-of-state, friends, your family. Most of all with that, practice, practice, practice. Practice with your children. How many of you have smoke alarms in your house? What do you do when it beeps? Supposed to. Supposed to. We do the home fire preparedness campaign through the communities. I don't know if you all have heard of that. We go around with FEMA, the local fire departments. And when we go to people's homes, and we say, do you have a smoke detector? And they say, yes, we do. And where is it? Oh, it's right here. And there's no battery in it. And they said, it kept beeping, so I took the battery out. Is it working now? Doesn't work if you take the battery out, right? So you're supposed to change the batteries, not take the batteries out, and you should be testing it as well. I ask kids in the school, do you have smoke alarms in your house? And they say, yes. And I say, what happens when it beeps? And they say, Mommy just fans it, and then it stops. So I said, well, how do you know if it's real or not? It's never real. It doesn't work. So you need to check those, and you need to plan with your families. Again, you have that online, how to make the emergency plan. You want to be informed. Remember the radio, the TV, the news? That's where we all go for the news, right? I'm a news fanatic. As soon as I finish this presentation, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to go check the news on my iPad. I'm going to check CNN, ABC, everybody. I'm just a news fanatic, right? I got to know what's going on. And anything could be happening right now. We're in this closed room who knows what's going on in the world, right? So I got to go see. With that said, remember our little trusty little radio here? I need this in the case of emergency. I got to know what's going on because we don't want rumors, absence facts. You know, we make rumors, people start talking about everything else, right? So you want to have that. The internet. You all know there's a wealth of information on the internet. If you can't find it, ask your kids. They can find anything too, right? These apps, all of these apps up here are free. Everything that I've been talking about, preparedness and all that, you can find those on each of those apps, on any of those apps, excuse me. The shelter finder, that is wonderful. When we were having all that flooding, tornadoes in Oklahoma and Texas, when people were saying, well, where are the shelters at? And I asked them, do you have a phone? Put the app on there, the Red Cross app, Shelter Finder. You can find shelters that are open. That's 24/7. You can find out where any shelters are open. First aid, how many of you have CPR certifications? I'm a CPR instructor. After 6 weeks of a class, you start losing that information. You start losing it. You know, use it or lose it, right? That first aid, it has CPR quizzes on there. It quizzes you on the CPR. It keeps your skills up. That's a good one to have. The other one, the pet first aid. Pet first aid. Yes, we have pet first aid. And if you did not know, we have CPR for pets first aid. That's the only class I don't teach. We do have CPR for pets. That's the only app that's going to cost you. That was 99 cents for the pet first aid, okay? Know your region. In the National Capital Region, who has the most fires? D.C., Maryland, or Virginia? You said Virginia, you said Maryland. Prince George's County in Maryland, the most fires. Second to that is who? D.C., absolutely. You all live in a very dense, for those of you who live in D.C., this is a very densely populated area. So when it's a fire, and there are multiple families affected, okay? So you need to know this. You could be prepared, but if your neighbor's not prepared in that townhouse right next to you, you're in trouble too. So you want to share this information with other people. You want to share the knowledge. If you have kids, and everybody knows that you have kids, your family members know that you have kids, they'll be over during a disaster too, because they know that you're prepared. So you want to make sure you have some extras or you're sharing this information with family and friends. Natural disasters, again, there's so many to name. Tornadoes, hurricanes, winter storms, earthquakes, all of that happens. Terrorism in this area. When I moved up here, just because this is the last place where my husband retired, his duty station was here in the D.C. area. But I remember everyone saying that, oh, I'm so terrified for you. You're right there in terrorism capital of the world, right? It's going to happen there. I said, maybe, but we'll be the most protected too. So I don't really worry about that as much, but also know that there are some areas that are just vulnerable. Metro, are we vulnerable in the metro? Anything could happen, right? So you want to be prepared. So that emergency kit, we're not talking just at home. We're talking about at work. I was speaking to a gentleman this morning. He has kits at home, at work, in the car. He is ready, okay? If you have it at home, it's not going to do you any good when you're stranded out there on the DWI during a snowstorm, okay? So those work as well. And the last thing, what's one thing you would do going home today just because you know better right now? What's one thing that you're going to do different? Anyone? I'm sorry? Make an emergency kit? Absolutely. Anyone else? Please tell me this wasn't in vain. Batteries in your smoke alarm. Yay, I'll take it. Yes. Move the kids closer to the exit. Yes, absolutely. Check the expiration dates on your water. Yes, ma'am. Make a plan, absolutely, and share your plan with everyone, right? Anyone else? Use the crowd. Yes, my friend. Well, thank you all so much for your time. That is all that I have today. I really appreciate. Yes, sir. Yes. They have to register themselves unless you have the information. Good question. Anyone else? Did you want them to use the mics for the questions?
That way everybody can hear you. That's listening in.
Just a question. I have, the soap powders, using the big buckets of soap powder. I put water in those, but they told me that I couldn't keep it in there for a long period of time. Is that true?
Yes, because you know how how everyone's talking about this BPA. because the chemicals, now I'm no scientist here, but the chemicals in that actual material hold in the water, that may contaminate the water. So, if you had soap powder in there, you know, yeah. Well, actually, I wouldn't even put it in one of those types of containers. Well, yes, definitely. And remember, I'm from Florida. We fill up those bathtubs and anything else that can hold water during a hurricane for a matter such as that. But definitely not for drinking water. You're good for that. Oh, absolutely. 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 Anyone else? Hang on one second.
My voice carries. Like these things. Oh, okay. I have one question about the bottled water. It has an expiration date, but you said it does not pertain to the water inside the bottle?
Yes.
It pertains to the plastic bottle?
Yes.
What does it do if it goes past that date, or what are they afraid of?
That plastic breaking down some kind of chemicals from the plastic with the contact with the water, making the water bad.
Okay.
No scientists, but that's the way it's explained.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
Would water clarification tablets help in that situation, and is that something that you would recommend in your kit?
Well, that's a good question, and we don't talk about that because everyone's definition of purification can change. Some people say 1 part bleach and 10 parts water, and we don't. Well, in a case of emergency, you know, there are different things that you can use out there. If you are familiar with those, you buy them on the market. You're welcome to use them, but we don't teach people about that because it gets too convoluted for a lot of people. Anyone else? Well, again, thank you so much for your time. The same presentation that I gave to you today, we do this throughout the region. We would come to your business, workplace, church, community group for free, no cost. It's about 45 minutes to an hour, and we do this for children as well. So have the children go through. It's similar to this one, but it's on their level and things that they can do. Okay? And thank you very much.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break, 5 after. We're going to start with personal safety and security awareness seminar. So while you're having your break, mingle outside and pass the word up and around to your fellow employees, okay?
Thank you so much.